up in the most unusual places. As he is moving along the border, he sees a company of lepers, 10 leprous men. Now, what's so unusual about this is leprous men, by distinction or definition, were people who lived outside the city. They had to abdicate their rightful addresses. They had to give up their family's connection. They could no longer live in the confines or in the comfort of their own homes. They were banished to colonies where everybody who was as sick as they were lived. Even when they encountered somebody who was well, they had not to come near them. They had to shout out, "Unclean." Now, get the picture. Here are people who have disfiguring illness called in modern times Hansen disease that could cause the atrophying of a whole limb. In other words, these people would lose their arms, would lose their legs because of the rotting of the flesh. But watch this. These people who needed some love, some compassion, and some attention, rather than receiving the embrace of the community, they are placed on the outside of the community. And then when someone came who was not sick encountered them, they had to further demean themselves by having to declare themselves unclean. They can't even have the sanctity of their own privacy. They have to yell out, "I am not well, I am sick." And if that wasn't enough, everybody in the leprosy colony did not have the severe Hansen disease or severe leprosy. You see, according to the law of Moses, if you had a severe skin rash or had a bad case of acne, you could be diagnosed as a leper. But as I look at the text, the amazing thing to me is here on the margins, on the border, between Samaria and Jews, in this company of despised people, there is a Samaritan, a foreigner, and there are Jews. Now, what I find fascinating about that is what draws them together in a society that despises each other is the fact that they all had some diseases. It is a fellowship of agony. It's amazing that agony will draw people together. You may not talk to me. I may not talk to you. I may be in a different class than you are in. But when agony comes, if we suffer from the same thing, it draws us together. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. These lepers, these men who otherwise would have hated each other and despised each other, are walking along in locksteps for one reason, and the only reason is that they are all sick together. Now, my brothers and my sisters, one of the things that strike me is that we ought to not get so uppity as church folk that we start looking down our noses at those who are less fortunate than us. Simply because you're doing well now, you have to understand that all of us are joined by the agony of our circumstances and by our situations. All of us. I'm afraid that we, even in the sophisticated society, do the same thing to people who are diseased with AIDS that are alone, that those before done to the lepers. We don't want to touch them. We don't want to be around them. We are afraid to have them touch us. We believe something will rub off on us. But the fact of the matter is, we are all sinners saved by grace. It's not because you are better than they. The people right next to you, some of you feel like you are better than the person sitting next to you right now. It's not because there are some evidence of God's blessing over your life that you are better than someone else. It's not because you're able to send your children to some private school that you're better than the person who can't do it. I'm here to remind you that all of us, not some of us, but all of us have an encounter with death. Every last of one of us is going to have our eyes rolled back in our heads and our tongue cleaved to the roof of our mouth. Every last one of us are going to be carried on somebody's church in some long black Cadillac and taken to some cemetery where the preacher would say some words and then the people would leave from there and go to someone's house and have peas and rice and macaroni and fried chicken. All of us. All of us. All of us. As part of this fellowship, Jesus saw them coming. And when the leprous man came toward Jesus, notice what happens. Now these men, by virtue of their condition, would have been beggars for a living.